Hi, Sarah. Thanks very much for joining us today on the Listen.Better Q&R podcast. I'm delighted to have you on our show today. So Sarah is the Chief Exec of the Chartered Institution of Waste Management. I understand you've been there for 2 decades, 14 of which you were MD, and in 2019 you were appointed CEO. So in 2 decades, you've seen some changes, but none perhaps quite like this year. So that's the focus for our discussion today. So tell me, what was your initial reaction to COVID-19 and how did you feel at the time back in March?
Well, if I'm honest, I think it was absolute sheer panic when everything was announced. Obviously, I was absolutely worried about the team and how I kept them safe and our volunteers safe. And I think those early days were really tough for us all. Everyone wanted answers from me. They were looking at the CEO to provide them with everything. And of course, I didn't have the answers because I've never lived through this before, and neither would anyone else.
Tell me a bit about the structure of the CIWM. How is it spread geographically, and what were the challenges you faced?
So CIWM has got centres across the UK. So we have a little hub up in Scotland, we're in Ireland, in the Republic and Northern Ireland, Wales, and then obviously in Northampton in England. So I guess the difficulty for us was trying to bring everybody together and try and find a way through this. Technology wasn't our one of the things that we were brilliant about in the beginning. We had to do an awful lot of work to get ourselves sorted with technology, and but once we got through that point, things were much better. Being able to then connect properly, use the technology and be able to see each other and bring our teams together so we can all talk and work out what we were going to do.
And as a membership organisation, clearly you have your own team, but then of course you have members. So how did each of those two audiences, if you will, react, and particularly into the changes that you then tried to implement?
Yeah, and quite differently. Our centres, where our main sort of hubs are, where our members, sort of volunteers are, I think they just weren't sure what to do at that point and were quite confused, and they weren't sure how they could add value, because the one thing they've been so used to doing is networking and pulling people together, and that suddenly disappeared, and they've been doing that for years and years. So those centres became very confused, weren't sure how to sort of bring value to the membership, and really struggled. So we had to really get behind our centres and really work with them, and really help them to see where they could still bring value. But of course, our members were just seeing that they were no longer part of a hub in Scotland or a hub in Wales. Actually, technology broke all that down for them, and they were able to they wanted the same information and the same service as our members in other parts of the UK, and we had to jump on that quite quickly to make sure everyone felt that they were getting value.
Of course. And were there some positives that you've implemented that you'll take forward into 2021 as a result of the changes that you had to make?
Definitely. So some of the things that worked really well for us, our online mentoring platform worked really well. We managed to get, within a couple of weeks, 85 mentors onto the platform when it launched. We had a webinar series, which really included an awful lot of topics that CIWM would never have touched before. So things like wellbeing became quite a priority for our members. So we were able to put those on. They were very successful.
What sort of challenges do you think members were then feeling? Why did wellbeing and perhaps mental health events benefit
So,
them?
yeah, so we conducted pulse surveys with our members, which were hugely helpful. They gave us some really timely insight into how our members were thinking and feeling and what was actually happening for them, and also what they wanted from CIWM. And they were struggling, just as we were, to adjust to the changes. Some of them were feeling lonely, some of them were feeling isolated, some of them just wanted to find ways to connect. But mental health came out as an issue, so we made sure that we added some things into our portfolio that were able to address those issues for members, and try and help and support them.
Fantastic. And just thinking about that, so did you find engagement and response rates in particular to those pulse surveys increased around COVID? Do you think people were wanting to share more and perhaps seek more support from you as their membership organisation?
Yeah, I think we had a really good response to those, and I'm not sure whether it was because it was particularly of COVID, or whether it was just we were doing it more frequently, because previously we'd just done the general annual survey to members, but particularly contacting people every couple of weeks and testing their temperature, not with a particularly long survey, but I think that really helped.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think the engagement was really good and very useful for us.
In some meetings I've been to over the years, there's been some debate around the future of membership organisations and what value they perform on the basis that everything's available on the internet now. How do you see the future of member orgs, and how do you stay motivated to deliver to your members and deliver great value?
Well, I think just over the last period of time, it's really shown how important our community is to the sector, and I don't think you can replace that just by going online and finding bits of content here and there. We've built a very strong community, and we can, just through the engagement we've had with COVID, our engagement numbers have, they've more than tripled, which is just absolutely significant. And it's things like our online community, and those webinars and those opportunities to bring people together that people still say they want from us. And yes, there are places where you can do that online, but the professional body is it's the hub of the sector. It's the place everyone looks to. And I think if membership organisations can manage to keep adapting to the environment and keep adapting to what their members want and need and stay relevant, then it's firmly a place for them. We've just got to evolve what our place is and our value and how we deliver it. It's just not going to stay the same.
So it sounds like the increase in digital offering, well, that's the only offer you've got at the moment on the basis you can't meet up. And at the time of recording, of course, we've heard that the vaccine is coming to the UK in its lorry at this very moment. But for the foreseeable, I guess real life networking opportunities are still going to be very much online. So what have you done? What do you think has been your most creative approach to that? Or how do you continue to keep the interest amongst members by the online offering you have?
I think the online offering, it's still about those topical things that members are asking us for, and making sure we're, our content is really what they want. And then we've been using our centres where I mentioned earlier, they're really struggling to find where they give the membership value. They are starting to do a lot more of the that more informal networking. So, those online quizzes, the opportunity for a chat and a coffee and those kinds of things are really coming into play now with our centres. So those things are still happening. We've had some quirky events going on, and we've also had some site visits. So site visits are one of the things that our members seem to love from our centre structure, and they essentially are doing sort of videos around a tour of a working operational site, and yeah, those seems to still be getting lots of interest.
Fantastic. Yeah. So with hindsight, is there anything you would have done differently if you could wind back time, be in March, knowing what you know now? Anything you'd have done differently or better?
I think the one area that we've really struggled with and probably weren't brave enough to push forward with early on is dealing with the decline of our large scale events. So essentially we just sort of said, well, actually they're not going to run this year, so we'll just say they're not going to run and we'll move on. And actually we should have tackled that. And I think if we'd realised how long this was going to go on for, we probably would have had more online events. So yeah, we've just been running the small seminars, which have been very successful. But of course, the larger scale events are where the organisation made quite a lot of its revenue. So that's where, yeah, definitely we could have done better.
Something for 2021 then.
Yes, it is. And we have got a worldwide virtual event launching in March on the circular economy, which we're very excited about, and actually embracing the opportunity to go much wider than the UK.
Okay. Fantastic. And is that open to non-members as well, or is that only members?
It is, yes.
Okay, so we can publish some details about that as part of the link here. And
Definitely.
then finally, if you were giving advice to perhaps an MD stepping into the CEO role in the coming months in their membership organisation, what top tips would you impart? What have you learned over the last year?
I think for me, it's very much about talking to your members, really listening to them and understanding what they want and need. I think a lot of people say they do it, but I don't think a lot of people actually do listen to what comes back. And that's really helped shape our programme. And we've had great feedback from that from our members. So I definitely encourage a new CEO taking up a post to do that, and to be prepared to be adaptable. You change your offering as the situation evolves. We've had to definitely do that in COVID, and I don't see that stopping now. And I actually think the membership are going to expect a faster pace of change from us rather than perhaps what we were used to before as an organisation.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you've had an amazing process of adapting. So taking your own advice on board, that you've really changed and responded to members' needs, and certainly music to my ears that you've listened and listened better to your members over the years to really understand what their needs are. It's been a real pleasure meeting you and speaking to you today, Sarah. So thanks for your time, and very best of luck as you go into 2021 for your members and your team back at base.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Thank you for having me today. It's been a pleasure.
You're very welcome. Thanks, Sarah.